Professor Heaton, you're thinking, why are you in a suit? Why are you so dressed up? In fact, maybe this beige kind of color isn't dressy enough. Ooh, there we go. It's a black tie event now. All right. Okay, the reason why I'm so dressed up is for unit number dos that we will be beginning this week. So last week we talked about the Romantics, who were the rebels, who went against the grain from what all the traditions had been telling them to do. So this week the pendulum swings back with the Victorians. So let's look at our intro real quick. So for Unit 2, we'll be investigating the Victorians and how their emphasis on manners and earnestness was a dramatic pendulum swing away from their romantic punk rock predecessors. This short-lived era during the reign of Queen Victoria, you see where it comes from? Isn't that clever? Clever girl. Was marked by the aspiration to be a good person. Okay, and so this is where we get a lot of these kind of deep-seated values that would wind up moving into a lot of future generations. So individuals were expected to be on a course for improvement, practicing good morals and good manners, saying the right things, doing the right things, behaving in the right ways. So it's much more straight-laced and buttoned down than their romantic predecessors. It feels old school. It's a throwback to those old-fashioned values. Magazines and books had articles that were dedicated to teaching kids about good behavior, imparting knowledge and wisdom to adults, and encouraging the culture at large to maximize their potential and efficiency. So it's not so much like the Romantics had about connecting with emotions and nature. This is a method of becoming more productive, of improving, becoming more efficient. So it's an era of good feelings. There's not a whole lot in the era of the Victorians that's political criticism or satire that's attacking the powers that be with either humor or much with teeth. You get a little bit of that with Charles Dickens, who's trying to draw attention to the disparities between the poor and the wealthy. But even then, it's done a little bit more subtly because his books are generally more, they're happy. They're happy. And for any of you that are reading A Christmas Carol, you're going to know this, that it's uplifting literature. So think of the stereotypes of old, buttoned-down, straight-laced 1950s family, and you'll get pretty close to the feel of the era. The Victorians were often criticized for their proper, prudish, and stiff sensibilities, but they also were in the throes of a revolution of invention and industry. Consequently, this era is perhaps most accurately characterized by its nostalgia for the good old days and its hope and excitement for what is to come. And then at the end I ask, sound familiar? Because it does kind of feel like our era in a lot of ways, that we're nostalgic for things of the past, but also we are in the throes of this technological revolution where we're getting all sorts of new things. Like I'm teaching an online course to you all right now, which is bazonkers, right? So in the same way, you have the Victorians that are reaching back to these values and traditions of the past, but also they're in the throes of the Industrial Revolution. So we've got all these new methods of mainstreaming production, of inventing new things, and essentially the whole world is changing around them. So there's this sense of hope that things are changing for the better. Okay? So, and just like week 1, essentially we're going to go through the same type of process. I'm going to click on lessons to get the ball rolling. And then obviously I'm going to click on week 2, the Victorians, June 8th through the 14th. So same thing here. I've got the little intro. I've got some background for the Industrial Revolution that I'd like you to watch. There's 2 videos this time. They're both pretty short and they're both good. That'll give you some more context. You can also use these in your research project as well. Okay? So for the text, once again, we've got a few poems. We've got Remember by Christina Rossetti, Jabberwocky, which is going to sound kind of absurd because there's a lot of made-up words, by Lewis Carroll. That's the dude that did Alice in Wonderland. So if any of you dig Alice in Wonderland, you'll probably like that poem. The Charge, the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and How Do I Love Thee by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The film that you're going to watch this week is The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. So, and that's going to help you with your discussion board post for the week. And then I've got some more resources down here the arts in Victorian Britain. That's going to bring you to one page, but please explore as much of it as you can. So look around there. And then the novel option for anybody that's doing the Victorians is A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, a story that I'm sure most of you are familiar with. It's great. Okay, so for the discussion, same types of things, right? This is the same, almost exact same assignment that you're going to be doing. So after watching and exploring all the text and resources for the unit, explain how the film The Importance of Being Earnest demonstrates the key ideas from the Victorian era. And once again, if you're not sure about the Victorian era and you need to explore a little more, use this link right here. It'll take you to that Schmoot page, and you can explore that resource to your heart's content to really familiarize yourself with the Victorian era. Okay? Then explain how one or more of the assigned texts, right? So these texts right here, how one or more of the assigned texts from this week also explores these key ideas. Make sure to quote the text you are using. Now, also in the midweek checkup, last week I posted some good examples from the previous week. So if you're confused about what your submissions should look like, go ahead and check there as a reference, and you'll get a good idea of what it is I'm looking for. And just as a keynote for the grading, if you get full points for your submission, and that means that you're doing wonderfully well. So I'm not going to give too many comments on students that I think deserve the full marks. So if you did not get full marks, chances are that I gave you a few comments there. So to access that, just go back through the discussion board posts and you should see my comments there to let you know how to improve. Okay? So once you have identified the key ideas in the film and text, analyze the values, philosophies, and or religious ideas presented in the text. What type of worldview are the texts arguing for or against? And then lastly, to conclude your composition, respond to the ideas of the Victorian era. What's your opinion? What do you think of these Victorians and their straight-laced, button-down approach to the world? Are you on board? Do you dig it? Do you think it's cool? Or does it feel stifling? Are you more of the punk rock rebel from the Romantic era? Or are you something different altogether? What do you think about this stuff? And then lastly, you have to respond to at least 2 of your classmates. So why do you agree or disagree with their opinion of the ideas of the Victorian era, right? Okay, so once again, make sure you're reading over those tips. Those will help you out. This is going to be due before 11:59 p.m. on Sunday, and I will touch base with you again on Thursday. Okay, just as a little prodding for the project, which I'll do on the midweek checkups and on the major announcements as well. So hopefully by now you have chosen the book that you want to read and you've started reading it. So I know that some of you have ordered the book and that you're going to read it more in depth when it gets in. But use those other files, right? So use one of these ebook files if you don't have it yet. Start reading now. That way when week 5 rolls around and you're having to do the project, you're not having to cram. So start reading that book now. So you should be well into the book, right? So I'd probably spend 30 minutes to an hour of reading it every day. That way you'll be finished well before week 5 rolls around. Okay? So make sure that you've chosen the book. Make sure that you're reading the book thoroughly. And also, by now, I would hope that you've chosen the method that you want to do for the project. Are you going to write the essay? Or are you going to do some sort of artistic expression, whether that be an original work of art or the graphic novel, or are you going to develop the Instagram page, right? So once again, just to reiterate, by now you should have chosen your book. You should be reading the book. Hopefully you're pretty far into it. Don't panic if you're not. There's still lots of time. And hopefully you've chosen what type of project you want to do. So in addition to all of those things, maybe start researching different things around your project, whether that be the author or the book itself. And if you're confused at how to do that, use this link right here, using the TCC databases. I've already had a couple questions come in via email. Some of you are starting to drop in on Google Hangouts. So do that, drop in on Google Hangouts. If you're unsure of how to do that, you'll see the directions. I'll attach in my announcements. And yeah, I think that's everything that I have. Okay, y'all are awesome humans. and I'll check back in with you on Thursday. All right, bye.